Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024, 9:02 a.m. My name is Ty Mentzer, Chair of the Board. To my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier. Commissioner Gary Edwards is here, and then Commissioner Klaus and Commissioner Mejia on Zoom. We have public virtual attendance on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We are here for scheduled for 3 hours. We'll take a break around halfway through that point. First up this morning is to review the BOCC draft agenda for this afternoon's meeting. Let's turn to that document. We will call the meeting to order at 2 p.m.
Here.
We have Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Klaus. Approval of Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 agenda. Presentations has proclamation for African American History Month.
And it's my understanding that Mayor Payne from the city of Olympia will be here this afternoon, if I recall.
Very good. Any questions from the board on the proclamation? It's a draft in the packet. Okay, next up is opportunity for public to address the board and county manager update. Interim County Manager Campbell is out for today. Assistant County Manager Gelder will be manning the ship for this meeting. And is there anything you intend to report on?
I think the suggestion was to take that opportunity as another announcement for our new county manager that will be starting on April 1st. But then I was also thinking of taking it as an opportunity to note that Ray Peters has joined as our very first tribal representative on the Board of Health. It's somewhat tangential, but we didn't necessarily have an opportunity last week at the Board of Health to call that out. So.
Okay, Commissioner Mejia, and then.
Thank you. I'm gonna make a little different suggestion. I think, Chair, not to put you on the spot, but I think maybe you should announce the new county manager, and maybe just given the recent media attention, just kind of address the process that we went through in terms of just references and background checks. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a little bit.
We can get it later.
Say again?
I don't have anything, but.
Okay. Before I'll, Brandy, you had your hand up? Is there something?
No, I was just pointing.
Okay. Okay, there's that suggestion. I'll think about that. How the right way to approach that is. Any thoughts about that?
The press release was, staying to that narrative, to me, the information was all there in that press release, but I don't think reiterating that in some way would be bad.
Okay.
Stick to the facts.
I've been, so we've gotten a couple of emails, right? And I've been making sure to answer them, but I think a message from the board, from the chair of the board, kind of, just stating it out there with all of us kind of right there. I think it just shows a form of we're all in agreement of this. We have done our due diligence with this candidate. And hopefully ease some concerns. I know that when I've responded back to some of the constituent emails that we've gotten, they are appreciative of knowing that there was some due diligence done. Knowing that not everyone read the press release, right? And so just kind of having another avenue for people to kind of have that information as well.
So, Rob, I'll just suggest you do what you were going to do, and then, at that level, and then I'll supplement that with a few comments related to the stuff in the press release.
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, anything else? County manager update? No, on the Board of Health, right. Okay, and then we have consent items. We have a long list of.
The Board of Health thing. So I guess it's premature to talk about how the new law would affect the board, but,
Yeah.
you know, I really value Mr. Peters on the board, and I would hope, but I would think that wouldn't affect his position, because his
not.
position's gonna remain mandated.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, then consent item 3A is operating agreement with Thurston Community Media.
And I know that Megan was trying to zoom in. She is out of the office today, but this basically gives, it's an operating agreement with Thurston Community Media, or TC Media, that allows them to continue to post public access programming onto Channel 22. There isn't any monetary obligation, but it just allows them to continue to have that access to that channel.
Any questions on this agreement? Nope, okay. 3B, Sheriff Department item, memorandum of understanding with U.S. Secret Service. Okay, Commissioner Klaus?
Yeah, so on this item, I actually had a few constituents have a conversation with me about some concerns. I don't think that I have any major concerns on this, but I'm wondering if we could take it off consent just so that we can have a short conversation about it. I had some constituents try to read through the MOU and they were kind of confused about the details, so I don't know if it would be worth just like a couple sentences at the meeting about what this entails.
So it's your absolute right to have an item removed from consent and put on. I see Chief Carter here, and I'm going to ask her to maybe speak on this item, and then if after she speaks, that's still your request, then we'll do that, Commissioner Klaus. Go ahead, Chief Carter, welcome.
Thank you. We are just requesting approval to enter into an MOU with the Secret Service that puts one of our detectives on the Cyber Fraud Task Force, which allows opportunities for training. It allows funding of overtime. It allows networking opportunities, and then it's a force multiplier if there was a critical incident in Thurston County. And Commissioner Klaus, I can answer any of the questions about the MOU now, or if you have those questions, that would be great, so I can dig in more if they're a little bit more involved.
Okay, thank you. I think that, like, there weren't any specific questions like, oh, tell me what this section means here, but it was more so like a group of constituents read through the MOU and they felt like it was unclear what the agreement entails. So I think if we were to pull it off consent and just even have you give, or somebody give that short explanation that you just gave, so that it's more clear for the public, I think that that would probably satisfy the confusion that these constituents had.
Is that something that Chief Carter could do now?
I'm not sure. I don't know if the agenda setting meetings feel as accessible to people as the regular meetings do.
They're all recorded, right? Are these? Yeah, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I think for just transparency purposes, it would be good to have that mentioned at the meeting. I mean, is that a heavy lift, or is that like a burden on anybody's time to just say like a couple sentences at the meeting later?
We'll be here. I just don't know that the Sheriff's Department has plans on being here. But if you were to request them, I'm sure that somebody would change their calendar and ensure they were here. But, you know, I want to be as respectful as possible to Chief Carter's time. So maybe she could speak to that.
I will make myself available if that's your request, Commissioner Klaus.
I think that'd be great if it's possible, just to alleviate any confusion. I think sometimes when it comes to like the public safety stuff especially, I have a lot of constituents come to me with questions or concerns that I can't necessarily answer just due to like the finer details in agreements like this, and I think that it would be helpful for some folks to just hear the details of it. I'm not really sure on the exact confusion or where it stems from. I didn't get a lot of specific questions, but
I'll just say in partial support, some things that we get are kind of like the same every year. They're updates and stuff. And this one is something I don't remember seeing before. So there might be a value in having the public just know what it's kind of about. Because, you know, it's not something that I remember in the last 5 years having approved. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess from my perspective, if Chief Carter can alleviate some of these concerns, I have no problem with that at all. But I am opposed to removing it from our agenda today, because anytime we can utilize a force multiplication to our advantage and working with the federal government, who we work with on every other type of activity, I think we just should continue down that path. I want to respect Commissioner Klaus's position on it, but she can make her constituents very aware of her concern and stuff if they're not satisfied. I'm not interested in removing it at this point in time. But I don't know, we have a democratic process here, and if she wants to remove it, I think we can take a vote.
The request was simply to take it off consent, not to remove it from the agenda.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, take it off consent. Let's vote for it.
Just so we have more information to provide to the
Okay,
public. It's
very
about
good.
transparency, which I know you're big on.
Yep.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Klaus, go ahead.
Oh, you said what I was gonna say. I was just gonna clarify that. I'm not trying to remove it altogether.
Okay. Sounds like we're good then, if we can have that item made into a department item. Thank you, Chief Carter.
Thank you. I'll be there this afternoon.
Appreciate that. Item 3C is a treasure item, write-offs of uncollectible personal property taxes for 2023.
And there is no one from the treasurer's office this morning, but this is an annual process of writing off uncollectible personal property taxes, actually a fairly nominal amount this year. I believe when Eric was here last week, he said it was probably lower than $4,000, which is a lot less than kind of what is annually experienced.
I would like to have a dollar amount in there so the public knows what we're voting on.
Is that okay to do, clerk? Can you follow up on that? Okay. I don't think there'll be any objection to that. Okay, so we'll amend that with the dollar amount. Item 3D, which will become C, but on this agenda, 3D, public defense, resolution establishing position.
And if the board will recall, this item was in response to some grant funding that the Office of Public Defense received. And so this is the creation of that position for them to carry out that work.
We've heard about this three times, I believe. Any questions about the public defense item? Okay. Item 3E, juvenile court probation, resolution reclassifying position.
This is also, this is a reclassification that Human Resources has worked with juvenile court on moving forward and is ready for the board's action. And Ted Bryan actually came in person today. If the board has any questions for him on this topic.
Our juvenile detention manager, Ted Bryan, welcome this morning.
Juvenile court administrator.
Administrator, okay, well, let's make that change on the agenda. Very good. Questions for Ted on this item? No? Oh, yeah, Commissioner
I
Mejia.
do. Yeah, I'm wondering the dollar amount for this item, right? What's the difference going to be, and then the impact to the general fund?
Well, it'll be absorbed by the current juvenile court budget, and it depends on what.
Well, absorbed for this year, but like, what's the impact for the other years?
Depending on what level that person is hired at on the pay scale, I think it was $6,000 to $8,000 each year.
Okay.
Not in this, excuse me.
68,000 annual salary
Yes.
difference. Okay,
Yes.
so per pay period, quite a bit, or monthly, quite a bit less than that.
Yes, monthly, quite a bit less.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
I wanted to roll back to when I had a dollar
Okay.
amount on this, but.
I think we're good, Ted.
Okay, I'm
I
sitting
don't hear
in,
any other questions on your item. We're good, thank you.
sitting in for the next item.
Okay, very good.
Oh,
Okay, Commissioner Edwards.
I
you
just
go
didn't
back.
want to get too far down
Yeah.
down the list here. I see my notes from last week indicate it's, on that treasurer's item, is $10,810.58. So I just want the public to be aware.
That'll help the clerk as well. All right. Next item is Superior Court Item 3F, Resolution Extending Data Position.
This is extending the end date for a position within Superior Court for the coordinator, and it basically is shifting it from June of 2024 to June of 2025.
Okay,
Ted can also answer any questions the board might have about this one.
I know that I'm looking at my phone because I know I have notes on this from last meeting. I don't exactly recall the details. Any questions for Ted?
Doing a good job.
So can you just, I'm just not remembering, why are we extending by 1 year?
My understanding is a state-funded position and the funding continues for another year, so we'd like to fill that position.
And
Keep
I
that
do
position
believe there was a
posted.
hiring issue. It makes it a little easier to hire if the date is out there farther.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah. That was the-
Okay, well, we did review this last week, is that correct? Okay, then I'll just double check my notes later. Thank you,
Thank
Ted. Okay, that brings us to G, Public Works, appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We have a whole bunch of appointments and reappointments here. I don't know that we need to go through them unless commissioners have questions or concerns about G, H, I, J, or K. Then we can probably skip through those because those are reappointments. Some of them are not even really in our control. They're appointments by the respective jurisdictions. SWAC, two of them fall into that category, 3. And then Agritourism Advisory are 2 reappointments. Okay, seeing no concerns there. Jeff, anything we need to know?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and let's go to the vouchers, which are L, M, and N. January 22nd, January 29th, February 5th.
And Commissioners, as per the agenda review last week, these 3 voucher lists do not include any expenses related to the tenant improvements at the atrium.
Okay, any other questions regarding vouchers?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Being we got some financial people in the room here, maybe. On the additional parking at the atrium, it's $1,620 every month, I think. And what fund does that come out of? I can give you it looks like it's out of 43773 maybe, but I'm not sure.
Out of-
It might be out of facility leases, I'm not sure.
Nicole Martinez, Budget and Fiscal Manager. Commissioner, I haven't seen that voucher list. I'm not sure. Does it say the fund number on it? Then I could let you know. No,
No,
it
I'll
does
tell you
not.
what, we'll bring it up later. No, let's,
We can follow up
Yeah,
and
we can
get
follow up.
clarification for sure.
I'll take a look at it.
okay, thank you.
Which week was that for, Commissioner?
Uh, 1/29/24.
Okay.
2/2/24.
Okay.
It's on page 52,
Okay.
61.
We will follow up.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Department Item 4A, Equal Employment Opportunity Plan. Ogden is,
DV is on Zoom. If the board has any questions, as per the discussion last week, this first EEOP really gives us, kind of establishes the framework. As we will then move forward, this will allow us to be eligible for various DOJ funding, but really does set the framework for the next phase, which really will be kind of focusing on the data, which is not an easy lift per se, right? Because we are making a transition from one system, HR system, transitioning to, in the next several months, to a new system. But we also have, hiring practices which may or may not capture all of the data that we're looking for to be able to report against. So it will take some additional due diligence on that front. And I know Commissioner Mejia has her hand up.
I see that. Go ahead, Commissioner Mejia.
Not a question per se, but just a thank you to DV. When we first did the first iteration, that only included the prosecutors, the sheriffs, and public defense, right? And kind of seeing those key metrics, I asked our internal auditing committee, right? What is it that's missing? And that is a big, heavy lift because, what basically Brandon said was those key metrics and just measuring that data is kind of what the heavy lift is in the EEOP. And so just want to thank Debbie for all of her work on this, setting this timeline and really keeping to it. I know that this has been a conversation that I know 3 commissioners have had many times, especially with the auditor's office and being able to access grants. So I think this is a big step forward for us.
Okay, so what I sort of saw was that this first iteration of this plan seems to sort of focus on the process for collecting data and setting up, as the assistant county manager said, a framework. And then you were talking about the next phase, like analyzing that data. And then I would imagine there's a third phase where you make policy decisions designed to remedy gaps in the data that you find. And that's where I was, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't getting ahead, getting to that advanced point without sort of further board analysis and discussion, but seeing kind of how it's set up, and really it's a data collection framework really is what I see in the first piece. And I'm looking at the assistant county manager to make sure I'm on track there.
I agree, and it really does, it's not only the data gathering, but it's also the reporting that there will be an annual requirement to make sure that we sort of convey that data. And DV, I would defer to you if you have any information. Don't know if it then goes to that next level, at least in the reporting standpoint, if there's an expectation to do a level of analysis and reporting about sort of, policy correction or changes to affect those statistics, or is it just purely a reporting out?
For now, I would say it's a reporting out. The charts that you see in the plan and then the attached utilization report, those we would report out every year. And that's data that HR has. We just need to clean it up a little bit. But additional data that's missing is not included. And that's where you see we need to report out on any employee activity based on race and gender. So anything to do with hiring, applications, promotions, demotions, anything at all. And so as Commissioner or Chair Menser said, this first year is figuring out how do we collect that data that's missing. And then ideally within every update to the EEOP, you're getting that breakdown, just similar to what you're saying, the analysis, the charts. And the expectation is that we identify how we're addressing any underutilization or any issues that we're seeing specifically related to EEO issues or complaints. So it's more of a response to what's happening and how we're addressing it. I've seen some EEOPs where jurisdictions highlight all their achievements. Some just focus on how they're addressing issues. So there's a variety of ways on how we approach it. But over the next year, it's just focusing on how we get this data that's missing. And we don't have the ability or the capacity to collect historical information right now.
Commissioner Edwards.
I think one of the main reasons that we're pushing right now is this opens up some election security funding possibly from the federal folks. So it's kind of timely that we get this done, I think. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on this item from the board? Okay, let's go to item 4B, interlocal agreement for 2024 Thirst and Climate Mitigation Collaborative Regional Initiatives. If I remember, Rebecca Harvey's here. If I remember correctly, we didn't have much discussion on this last week because we'd had a briefing and discussion before that. But are there any final questions for Rebecca? All right, sounds like you're good, Rebecca. Thank you. 4C is a resolution of intent to reimburse Thurston County limited tax general obligation bonds.
And budget manager, Nicole Martinez is here. Is there any questions the board might have?
And this is, as we had for the public's benefit, we had a briefing last week, I'm losing track of time, where it was with bond advisors and bond counsel, two separate groups that help us on this track to explain the process for this, which requires this resolution as kind of a first step, which then sets a clock ticking for.
Correct, and it doesn't necessarily obligate the board to go for an issuance of bonds, but what this particular resolution does actually creates the starting point by which there can be some cost recovery for the certain amount of effort and due diligence that's going into whatever project that is ultimately funded through that bond. So it just allows us to set a moment in time. In this case, would be retroactive to the beginning of the year to be able to capture those costs and get that recovery accomplished.
60 days before the resolution is passed is when you're allowed to go back. So as the preliminary work on certain projects gets done, the bonds can come out next fall or whenever it seems to be advantageous, and then you're able to, you have that starting point where you're able to recapture costs.
Right, in this case, it would be somewhere towards the Christmas holiday back in the 20th. December 22nd.
All right.
Yes.
It's my birthday, so. Go ahead.
This is that $50 million, that, right, $50 million bond starting to be able to get to the point we can draw money off of it.
No, are you
Is this
referring to the courthouse?
Yeah, or is this the law enforcement
This would
special
be-
tax?
Correct, from the,
Okay.
funded through the public safety
I just need
sales
to clarify
tax
that.
for
Thank
the respective purposes potentially.
So it's, if I may, it's for 3 projects that we've identified in the resolution, and that is for court security, also some kind of facility for the sheriffs, and also improvements to juvenile jail. So it's not necessarily public safety sales tax, that we don't have to identify what that funding source will be. But this is just saying that we will go out for a bond, and when we pass this resolution, we have 60 days to go back. Last time we spoke, that was introduced by the council, from the board, excuse me, that you guys would be interested in putting that on this resolution, and we have not identified what that funding source would be to pay the bond.
Chair?
Yeah.
Could I clarify something? Is it court security or election security?
Election security, thank you, sir.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
Anything else, Nicole?
No, that's it, thank you.
Anything else from the board? Thank you, Nicole.
I'm here also for the other items, I will say.
Okay. I'll get there in a sec. Okay, what do we got? D. 4D, resolution for Consolidated Communications of Washington LLC telecommunications franchise agreement, transfer of control.
That's right, so we have a franchise agreement with Consolidated Communications. They are looking to transfer control to another entity in which they are a part of. That entity's name is Nextcape. We already have an agreement with them, which is a 10-year agreement, so this is not changing any of the terms of that agreement, but just the parties are underlying. That is part of the agreement or contract that they sign with us, that they would notify us whenever there is change in the backing of that. So this is a transfer of control. It is not changing of the agreement.
Any questions? No, thank you. Next up is resolution for temporary appointment to 19th District State Representative.
Which, Commissioners, this is probably a first for me as well, but I don't think I've ever seen this emerge. But per RCW 7316.040, there is a provision. In this case, Representative McIntyre is a state representative, but also engaged in active, or is a reservist, is being called up, has a certain amount of time, which happens to coincide with the legislative session, and this allows us to appoint someone as a temporary successor to fill that position for a set number of days. In this case, it's only about 4 or 5 days towards the end of session, but each one of the legislative authorities or Board of Commissioners within the 19th that sort of touch that legislative district also are doing the same thing. So those have been occurring starting last week and into this week. Each jurisdiction is adopting a resolution for that temporary appointment.
Okay, so somebody's looked at this and said it's the right process for.
John Braun did it in like 2015. He's a captain in the Navy, and he appointed his wife for a period of time. So it does happen occasionally.
And we have had civil use the resolutions.
Commissioner Edwards.
I guess I'd like to thank Representative McIntyre. He serves in the United States Marine Corps, and he's going to take care of our country. He is appointing Lillian Hale, and she is a relative of his. I guess there was some question who it was. Like you said, John appointed his wife in the past. I don't know how close or anything, but it's just a temporary fill-in so they can get the job done.
Might be worth noting, I looked at the maps, and this is basically Independence Valley, some of Commissioner Fournier's constituents that are represented by Representative McIntyre. And there's I don't think that 19 even touched us until the last redistricting. I think it's kind of new that we have that extra.
It's that heavy populated area of
Little
Independence.
chunk. I don't even know how many people it is, but it's 6 people. It's not a lot of people, but it's one of the most beautiful little chunks of Thurston County.
I guess I'd point out one thing, maybe Rob missed, was on the RCW, it's RCW 7316041. Not that it makes any difference, one letter off, one number off.
Okay, any other questions on this item? Item 4F is a call for sealed bids for the official county newspaper.
Yes, Commissioners, this is one of those items per RCW 3672.075 that requires pretty much the county, but all jurisdictions to go through a process of identifying the official county newspaper or newspaper of record. So this would provide authorization to move forward with giving the clerk of the board the ability to set a time and date for receipt and opening of bids to be the next county official newspaper.
I do have a question on this,
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
but I don't know if the answer is here or not. Does this depend on circulation numbers with our newspaper, or it's in the county seat, or any of those particulars? Do we know how that works? Because circulation is down so much. I don't know if electronic circulation covers it. We have several papers that the Chehalis Chronicle still puts out of print. I think Tenino puts out print, Yelm puts out print.
Centralia Chronicle and Nisqually Valley News, or Yelm, are the same newspaper. Just, that's.
I mean, they share articles, I don't know.
No, they're the exact same newspaper. It's just a different brand.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So, for whatever that's worth.
I was just wondering how the process goes for bid, who's all eligible, because all of them have a very extension to the print process that might might make them eligible, and I don't know who's all going out, gets the RFP notice or whatever. I just asked the question. I'm all for it, just. if anybody
It
knows
is something
the
that we
answer.
need to do, but Amy, do you recall that there are specific requirements that they have to meet to be eligible?
Send out a bid form as well to every newspaper.
I'm not sure who is speaking, but we cannot hear them.
Oh, it's Amy. Unfortunately, our microphone over on the side of the room is not, does not pick up the sound as well.
Clerk of the board is saying that every newspaper in the county gets a form, and then maybe you come over here, Amy, and answer the question.
Put you on the hot seat for a
We submit a bid form to every legal newspaper within the county as well. And the bid form asks for their information like paid subscription, circulation, publication dates, cutoff times for publications, and prices for first insertions, second insertions, third and higher insertions per line. And we also review the type size, whether it's print or electronic. So we try to review their full package, including electronic circulation.
We have one paper or one news outlet that's, I don't think they have print. And then we have one that's maybe outside the county, so I'd like to make sure everybody gets a notice, that's all. That everybody's
Are the
eligible.
RFPs out right now?
No.
No, not yet.
They'll go out after this is approved.
Yeah.
Can you have, I don't remember all the different statutes that, identify the county identified newspaper, but aren't there some kind of antiquated statutes out there that require things to be printed for a certain period of time and stuff? So, you can't even,
That's what I'm wondering about.
can't even deal with an all.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating
by
for
law.
anyone. I just want to get it right so somebody doesn't come back and say, well, you left us out, and the RCW says. So, do we get legal review on this RFP that goes out as well? So,
We often submit legal notices to the official county newspaper and to other newspapers in addition.
okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, I think our goal is to, and there are no specific circulation requirements for the RCW in terms of a quick review of that. But it is sort of incumbent upon each jurisdiction, right, to try to cast that net as broadly as possible. So I think in terms of going out for the RFP, can try to establish some of those, that baseline of service that we're looking to achieve.
I know, there was a question one time when News 52 was a local weekly print here in Olympia, and
They didn't get
were they
invited or
eligible?
whatever.
That's right, were they allowed to bid? I just want to make sure we get it right. They've been out of business for a long time.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Let's move on to 5A, Community Planning and Economic Development. The item is Ordinance for Agricultural Code Amendment, CPA 16. Anita Phobos is here from CPED, and I think we know what this is about, but let's just maybe make sure everybody's on the same page.
Rob, did you have?
Nope, please.
Great, okay, yeah, I'm filling in for Ashley Arai, Andrew DeFovas, Senior Planner of Thurston County. So the item before the board today is a motion for consideration to adopt an ordinance to expand agricultural uses within the long-term agricultural zoning district and to clarify regulations and streamline permitting within the agritourism overlay district. So today's ordinance is only on the code amendments that affect these areas. It is not on zoning or map updates. Those are going to be brought forward for a later standalone hearing in 2024. So it's gone through the full process, planning commission, stakeholder groups, board briefing, board public hearing, and is now back before the board with the board's recommended changes or requested changes and ready for you to consider adoption.
Did you work on this, Sandy?
No, I did not.
I won't ask the question then, maybe.
Please do. I mean, I'm studying up back there, so if you'd
Well,
like to know something.
I was just curious, and maybe it's something that could be presented this afternoon if you don't have it handy, but when it says in the action, streamline permitting, I'd like to give an example, just to give an example of how these changes are going to streamline permitting in some way. Just doesn't have to be comprehensive, but just to give folks a flavor.
Yeah, I can tell you one that I actually just looked at. So certain uses were only allowed by special use permit previously and now are listed as outright permitted uses in the LTA zoning district, subject to the standards in that district, but they no longer need to go to the hearings examiner. So that's an example.
That's a huge difference for the
Absolutely.
applicant potentially.
Yeah, I think greenhouses and nurseries were one that would fall into that category. But yeah, I'll put together a little bit of a few comments about that and get that into my
Appreciate
remarks for this afternoon.
Anybody else? All right, thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Item 5B is also CPED, request for qualifications for Habitat Conservation Plan implementation support. I know we've talked about this one a couple of times. Marissa Wisman from CPED, Associate Planner, is here to give us kind of a thumbnail.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Managers. I'm Marissa Wisman, Associate Planner with Community Planning. And we're requesting board approval to issue a request for qualifications for technical support in the enhancement and management of our HCP conservation land system. As you all know, we're very happy to finally have the HCP in place, and we want to ensure success in managing our conservation land system. This system will be built on over time, over the 30-year duration of the incidental take permit. So it's a very large undertaking, and the HCP does require a third party to hold conservation easements and stewardship endowments for county-owned lands. This concludes my remarks. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Emergency Services, 6A, Resolution for the Thurston Region Hazards Mitigation Plan. Ben Miller-Todd, our Emergency Services Director, is here to give us an overview of the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a quick overview. We're looking to pass a resolution regarding the hazard mitigation plan. I will point stakeholders and residents of Thurston County to a board briefing on the 24th for a full overview, about a 30-minute overview of all the changes within the plan. The highlights in terms of the why we do this of the plan are that it reduces disaster impacts, increases resilience, and reduces disaster response costs. In addition, it's necessary for receiving federal mitigation assistance and is required to be updated every 5 years. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you might have over the hazard mitigation plan.
I don't see any questions on that one, Ben, but hang on for 6B, procurement of Panasonic ToughMate G2 ruggedized tablets and associated equipment.
Absolutely. This is the replacement and associated equipment of all of our ruggedized tablets throughout Thurston County. All of our response apparatus have charting tablets in which they have to chart out HIPAA compliant information for records for all of the responses that we do in Thurston County from an EMS standpoint. With that being said, in alignment with the Thurston County IT policies, we need to replace these every 5 years to make sure that we have compliant security systems, as well as updating the equipment to continue to be ruggedized throughout the process. This is 125 devices throughout 12 different fire districts and municipalities in Thurston County, and I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
Usually, Ben, we'd have a dollar amount.
Oh, I apologize. The dollar amount is a total of $659,643.06, and within the description is the breakdown on what all of that entails.
So Amy, can we add the dollar amount to the action?
All right, so the direction to add the dollar amount to the item, does that cover your concern?
Thank you.
Anything else from board members?
I might mention it was a unanimous vote, I think, of the
EMS.
Okay.
Yes, it was a unanimous vote of the EMS Council for the recommendation of the 24-25 adopted budget.
Yeah, I might mention I abstained, I believe.
Okay, you know what? Thank you there, Ben, on those items.
Thank you.
Let's go to Public Health and Social Services for item 7A, which is a request for proposals for public health and social services. Who's up on this one? Tom Webster?
Tom is, but there's your camera. Okay.
Yep. Thanks. Sorry, I need to get my camera fixed. So this is a request to allow us to issue a request for proposals. This is something we come to you every year with. We have a consolidated request for proposal process where we have multiple funds that we put out at the same time. Most of these funds are for affordable housing and homeless services activities, and this year most of those will be going for capital affordable housing activities. However, in addition, we're also requesting issuing a request for proposals for the City of Tumwater's Community Development Block Grant. It's Tumwater's turn in the rotation this year, as well as for the Veterans Assistance Fund for emergency shelter beds. And those applications will begin accepting on February 23rd is when we'd open up the RFP with applications due April 5th. And those funds will be reviewed either by the Regional Housing Council advisory boards, the City of Tumwater for CDBG applications, and the Veterans Advisory Board for the veterans funds. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
No.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't very quick again.
Oh, go ahead.
No
No.
questions. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I messed it up.
All right, we're good. Let's go to Public Works. 8A, interlocal agreement with City of Lacey for Pacific Avenue pavement preservation. We have Matt Enzelman, our county road engineer.
And
Brian
Brian
Meyer.
Meyer is going to cover this item.
Okay, Brian, good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Brian Meyer, Project Manager, Engineering Project Manager with Thurston County Public Works. This item is to request the Board of County Commissioners to execute an interlocal agreement with the City of Lacey for our Pacific Avenue Pavement Preservation Project. This project is 100% grant funded, yet about half of the project limits is within City of Lacey's incorporated area. The area was incorporated after we received the grant, but this interlocal is kind of the mechanism to allow us to move forward and finish the construction part of this project, within the City of Lacey's incorporated limits. The grant is, like I said, 100%, but any amount over the grant amount within the city's work, the city will reimburse the county for. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer it.
Brian did a good job covering it. The only thing I'd add is, so the next time you'll see us, we'll be hopefully requesting permission from the Board of County Commissioners to award the construction contract.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Questions? Nope, looks like we're good. Item 8A is also, or 8B is also Public Works. Ordinance repealing Thurston County Code 1304 relating to road districts.
Road districts. So Public Works staff reviewed county code last year in preparation for the new 5-member board to see if any updates needed to be made due to the number of commissioners. It was determined that an update needed to be made to 13.04 of the code regarding road districts. Road districts were used pre-statehood for constructing and maintaining roads. In 1969, Thurston County passed Ordinance 3900, which established 2 road districts as provided for by RCW 3675060. As we no longer use road districts, Public Works is requesting that we repeal this ordinance and adopt a ordinance defining all territory in Thurston County outside of incorporated cities and towns as a single Thurston County road district.
Questions? So there were 2, there's 2 right now?
Currently, there's 2 road districts, yeah.
But that has something to do with the the previous commissioner districts? Like, how does that fit through 2 versus 3?
That's a great question. And they're districts 1 and 3. There's no 2. So.
Okay. All right.
I guess so.
Yeah, it sounds like we're good on that piece. Thank you.
This is just cleaning up the code.
I'm just jotting that down so I remember to create. So there will be a road district, but it's just going to be one consolidated.
Yeah.
There's just, okay. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, then that's the end of the business agenda for this afternoon. They'll have standing reports. Standing items are reports from commissioners and reviewing of our combined schedule. Okay, so then that takes us to proclamations and awards. Okay, so we have, next up on that is Women's History Month, March 5th, and there'll be a draft circulated maybe next week. Okay. We've got, every commissioner should make sure we have all, I think I made a couple of edits on the African American one, but any questions on proclamations and awards? Okay, then next up is advisory boards and commissions. We have, looks like we have some Fair Board applicants.
Included in your packet are 3 applications for the vacant youth at-large position on the Fair Board. Fair Board will review these applications at their next meeting on March 6th. I will have that.
Can Amy, I'm sorry, Amy, I just,
Get back up here.
3 youth applicants. Fair Board's going to review them at their next meeting, is where she was at.
Yes, included in your packet are 3 applications for the vacant youth at-large positions on the Fair Board. The Fair Board will review these applications at their next meeting on March 6th. So I will have that feedback for you on March 12th. So I'm sharing these for informational purposes for now.
Looks like I need to get busy and find 2 more District 3 reps that need to live in District 3, or they're,
Actually, when it comes to the fair kind of restructure, that is a briefing coming up on the board's calendar in the not too distant future. And actually, so on the tomorrow, actually afternoon, we have that for the kind of a rundown. Jeremy has come up with kind of similar to some of the concepts that went into the Planning Commission retooling. We'll bring that forward for a Fair Board restructure. So I wouldn't necessarily.
don't send my notice out today.
Yeah, not
That's
yet,
fine.
until we kind of see where there may be future vacancies.
All right. Okay, so, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Lodging Tax Advisory Board is filled. I think we still need to remove that one. And then the Ag Advisory Committee, is there still 1 farmer vacancy? I think they interviewed applicants just last week, maybe, 2 applicants, I believe.
I think so, but I haven't.
So I don't, okay, because at the time that we identified Jennifer Colvin, there was a second applicant, farmer applicant, that I thought was also good, and I'm just wondering
That
if.
may be one of the people they interviewed last week.
Okay, I mean, I'd hope so, or if not, then we should connect to that person. And I remember the name, I can give it to you, but it was, at the time, I think he sort of said, oh, I'm thinking about applying for Planning Commission or something, so so we went with the other applicant for that, for multiple reasons, but it would be, if that seat is sitting vacant and there was a pretty good applicant,
They interviewed the gentleman who owns Cosmic Carrot Farm, and then a gentleman that's worked with the Conservation District named Donnie Wilcox.
okay, so we just don't have those applications listed here.
Correct. I'll circle back.
Yeah, we should add them if they're pending applicants, because that would have alleviated that confusion. Commissioner Evans?
I wonder if we could
I met him at that.
maybe rethink how we approach these advisory boards and commissions, activities and appointments. And here's what I'm gonna suggest. I don't know that this is the proper way to move forward on this, but oftentimes we have a lot of questions and it usually falls on the clerk of the board. Well, did they interview? Who put in, numerous questions that do come up periodically. And I don't know what my approach is exactly, but I think we're unduly burdening the clerk of the board to come up with some of these solutions, because most of these commissions and boards, and maybe all of them, have a staff person appointed to them. And on some of these issues, would it be beneficial to have that staff person be available if we're going to have questions about it? Because I know we've talked in the past about making sure on the clerk of the board, now we're kind of getting away from the Board of Health being conducted by the clerk of the board. Seems like there's always plenty to do for the clerk of the board. She always says she can do it. I've asked before, you know, is there anything that we can do? But I often wonder on some of these boards and commissions, and we have quite a few of them, where we have a staff person assigned to it. Couldn't that staff person kind of give us the breakdown? They actually attend the meetings and participate with that particular group. And seems like it'd be a lot easier if we had that staff person available to us in some fashion or another. I don't know how that is, but oftentimes we're doing things and we seem like we postpone and, well, what about this or that? We always don't have the answer. I'm just asking, is it worth looking at? I don't know what changes we've made.
I mean, my reaction to that is, I mean, like, right now, on this sheet, there's 9 committees with vacancies, and you're saying if we had 9 staff members sitting there in case we have a question, but we only actually had a question on 1, so 8 of them would just be kind of.
I'm just asking, oftentimes it comes up. I'm trying to simplify the process. Maybe we wouldn't have to ask those questions if we had that person.
It seems like the process is different for each one.
It is. It's
Definitely
different
a
for
little
each
bit.
one. It's complicated for the clerk.
It has to be different for each one, I think.
Yeah, and so maybe that person, after a meeting of one of these groups, they can submit the information to Amy so she doesn't have to, or the clerk of the board, so she does not have to track it down all the time.
Well, that's a reasonable thought. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
somebody's got to run point. on
Somebody's
this.
got to run point.
Whether it's you
Yeah.
or whether it's you with help from the committee leads is a good question, but I don't think we can actually have, you know, everybody available. But,
Yeah.
but it's a good point that, like, if the staff lead, you know, required to kind of give you updates, and then you're not trying to.
Because once in a while, we go through, you know, there's 3 or 4 of them, several, and somebody's being removed.
And it seems like, you know, we have it as a standing item every agenda setting meeting. It may be, because we need to kind of compile where all of those various advisory groups are in terms of their vacancy. Maybe we look at it less frequently, but we're able to sort of pull together sort of the current status from each one of those staff leads.
Yeah, once a month, we dig into where they all stand, and then everybody sends a report into Amy. That's not a bad.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to streamline it, just a little bit. I don't have the answer for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
worth talking. We don't need to talk about it here. I was going to bring that up during commissioner items.
Well, Amy and I, we can take that away and work with the staff leads and bring
Okay,
back a proposal for the
Yeah,
board.
just see if there's something that might make it.
It's truly incredible to me just how every single one is different.
Yeah.
In terms of how you pick the people, what the composition is. You know, I mean, it's like really difficult to keep track, be the master of all. And what's here are just where there's vacancies. There's actually like 5 times as many. Because the ones that are fully staffed aren't listed here. So, I mean, you literally.
I want to add some.
You have like 40. We're adding them left and right all the time.
And that's the challenge when groups kind of emerge kind of organically, and they all kind of have their own charter, their own bylaws, and choose the complements and how they're appointed or selected, and there's a lot of moving parts.
Commissioner Mejia.
I think this is maybe it's a good time to bring this item back again. We had it like 3 years ago, but it was a review of all of the committees, advisory committees, and kind of like the makeup of them. And I think it just gives, you know, all of us an opportunity, you know, for the previous commissioners to refresh themselves and for the new commissioners to see all of the different advisory boards and the different makeups and bylaws and just processes that each individual one follows.
Planning session
Planning
topic,
session.
potentially.
Yes, for a planning session.
Okay,
Yeah, we just need to talk about it, that's all.
sounds good.
If we can always do better, if we can do better.
And we'll be talking tomorrow about the Fair Board specifically.
Specifically in the afternoon.
Very good. All right, anything else from the board on?
I would like to
Yeah.
make sure that this is no reflection on our new clerk of the board, other
Oh.
than positive. You know, I think she's doing great.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay. Next up is PIO check-in.
Hi, Anna Rhodes, Public Information Officer. No updates at this time.
Questions for Anna? Okay, let's just move right along. Commissioner items, we've got docket pending decisions, 2 bullet points. One is noticing of UGA swap parcels. And we have Andrew Vaughn from CPED are you out here for both of these items? Okay, anything need to be set up?
Nope.
Kind of okay, Andrew, let's start with UGA swap parcels noticing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Bond with Community Planning. Last week, we went over all of the projects included in this round of docket updates. And one of the questions we had for the board was, for the UGA swap for the Bar Holdings project, should we notice the property owners? Because this is a new state law that allows for swapping. Only some of the property owners are applicants and others are just included in the proposal. And so what we are asking is if we should notice them, as well as if they are rented out, notice the resident of the house. So all parties included.
So, I'm sorry, so you're saying this is like, there is a notice provision related to like people that reside there, but you're talking about if they're renting their property, do we go to another level of hitting the property owner?
So we're actually going a little bit beyond the standard noticing for docketing. We don't do a typical mailed notice for docketing. We just do our standard legal ad, press release, and so on. We would only do a mailed notice during public hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. But for the parties included in the proposal, we wanted to give them the opportunity to comment during the docketing review before they are considered for the official docket.
Right, this was to be sort of that additional level of work so that in those 20-day comment period, as the board comes back to review the docket items, to have a data point from those potentially affected property owners as part of the deliberative process.
And so I missed that briefing and I haven't watched it yet, so we're talking about a particular proposal in Tumwater to do a UGA swap, is that what we're talking about?
That's correct.
And so you're talking about the properties that would be swapped out of the city, no, out of the UGA and into the rural county.
Correct.
And so I guess I'm a little confused. So everybody that's in that group wouldn't typically get a mailing, but now they are going to get a mailing?
So with a typical rezoning proposal that we receive, most of the time, the parties included in the rezoning are the parties that are affected by the rezoning, or at least they're the consultants that are working with the property owners. This application is kind of in left field where we have the property owners that are on the application, but then there are 12 distinct property owners that are not on the application. And so to provide a greater sense of transparency.
Why are they not?
Because currently under state law, they're not required to participate. So anyone can request a swap and they don't necessarily have to sign on to it.
So if this swap were to be granted by the board, it's only 12 people?
It's 18 parcels, 12 distinct owners.
There's several large ones on that side of Tumwater by Black Lake.
I thought it was and I was I haven't looked at the maps. I'm hearing this verbally. I thought it was capturing a chunk of single-family residences that was more substantial than that.
There's some smaller, like single dwelling, properties, but then there's the Black Lake Quarry to the north. So it's a kind of a wide range of
Kind of a
different
big
sizes.
swampy area to the north of Black Lake that might be residential, but it would never be residences.
There's, from our just initial look, there are quite a bit of critical areas over there too. So they may be, restricted in the future if they were to develop to their.
And this really is our first foray going into this whole topic of potential swaps and massaging the perimeters of, or the boundaries of a UGA. And so the interest really is to kind of go above and beyond to make sure that those potentially affected property owners have an opportunity
Yeah,
to
seems like a good idea.
say
Was there
whether or
any
not
to
More
say
open
about that?
government,
Yeah.
open government. is what it's about. A few more postage stamps or something.
Any disagreement with that from the board? Sounds like the right thing to do.
Andrew said it was the right thing to do, too.
Yeah, all right. So that's it there. Can we go to the next one?
Wasn't there something about when we had the meeting, we weren't allowed to make the decision in that
Correct.
meeting? So we had to do it in this format, is that right?
Well, it would have been yesterday, but because of the holiday,
Yeah.
some of these decision points got moved to this
Okay,
morning.
all right, very good.
I'd like to wedge something in.
Yeah.
So this is regarding the docket and pending decisions. I've talked with staff, and I'd like to request an additional item be added to the docket, that the commissioners consider adding to the 20-day comment period, an analysis of the Tenino UGA to identify any potential changes that are needed. This is only the analysis of the UGA area, and any subsequent projects will be a future docket item. But if you look at Tenino's UGA, that it really is non-existent, and I think this is a good opportunity, or we could have a good opportunity, to just have a discussion about that.
I'm good to go on that, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, just adding it to the docket for the comment period.
Just because you're saying that maybe they need an expansion of their UGA?
Or swap. So anything's on the table, but there is really essentially no UGA for the city of Tenino.
And there is new legislation that came into place, I think, a year ago.
Correct.
Anyway, so why not, is the way I'm looking at it.
So basically, it would be a board requested addition to potential docketed item that will go out for comment in the next 20 days.
And we can't really accept comment if we don't put it out there, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that way, it can be considered as part of your, when you work with staff to figure out what is on the docket.
So in this thing that was just handed to me, is the gold UGA?
No. The UGA is really only.
Oh, I see where there's a black thing but yellow.
Yep, right here. There's a hidden little spot right here, and then right here.
Okay, I was like,
It's virtually nothing.
I was like, gee, Wayne, it looks like you
Yeah,
got
no.
quite a bit of stuff. It's almost twice the size of the city. All right, so that makes sense then. Any questions or concerns about that? Putting that out for comment? Okay. Seems like we have consensus on that.
We'll add that to the packet.
And I guess the last question is, should we kickstart the 20-day comment period? We'll do it at the end of this week, so either Thursday or Friday.
So the clock will start at the end of this week, okay.
Get things going.
And we are already receiving public comment.
And we couldn't do this the other day either. We had to wait and do it either yesterday or today. So
Will this be an action item on the agenda tonight?
No.
No, okay.
This is just a thumbs up. And just for anyone that's listening, we do have a new docketing webpage that captures both the comprehensive plan docket as well as the development code docket with 2 distinct comment forms that are already live. And later this afternoon, we will incorporate the Tenino UGA analysis into that survey. And what's interesting about that survey is you can actually then see lower at the bottom of the page an interactive viewer of your comment that you've already added. So it's kind of live and for anyone that's interested in the comments.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, that takes care of 5-1. 5-2 is broadband, Commissioner Wright request. Looks like we have an email in our packet.
Yeah. Commissioners, there's an email, but also a letter dated February 13th of this year from Commissioner Corey Wright from Kittitas County. Commissioner Wright has been involved with the State Association of Counties, specifically around broadband readiness, and is has reached out basically to all counties to get hopefully more participation. And so the request to the board is for someone that he might be able to speak with or that would get involved more actively, potentially with the WASAC efforts. And so that is a request. Would it be one of the commissioners? Do you have the time and interest to get involved? Jenica is also on Zoom this morning, if that would be something that the board would like to. Jenica is already involved in broadband issues, and so there could be a good synergy there, but wanted to bring it before the board. There was a specific request from Commissioner White.
Can it be a commissioner and Jenica? That way there can be some, I know sometimes in these committees, they like to have a commissioner present, and so.
Sure, I think
it sounds like a volunteer.
Absolutely not. I was going to volunteer commissioner for you.
Okay, so what's the thing we need to decide?
It's just, the decision point really would be, is there a commissioner that would like to at least have an initial conversation with Commissioner Wright, and then sort of sussing out whether or not there is a greater commitment going forward, or if it is some role that could be well served for the county to have Jenica involved, et cetera, or both as part of that initial conversation.
Do we know how often they meet?
At this point in time, I don't think it's specifically around that request. Jenica, I don't know if you have any other information about the WASAC committee.
I don't. This email and letter was the first time that I became aware that they had a WASAC specific group meeting.
How about if we had Jenica be the groundbreaker or cover to kind of find out what's next, what's coming, and get back to us? But I think it sounds like we're interested, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'd piggyback Jenica if she's on board with doing it. I'm not real knowledgeable on the subject, so I wouldn't want to be going about that myself and mucking things up.
Sure, I'd be happy to chat with them and report back.
Okay, so maybe have Jenica reach out to Commissioner Wright, try to schedule something, and if possible, if it works with Commissioner Fournier's schedule, include him as well, and then it come back to the board. But if it doesn't work, just get something on the books with Jenica.
Get the ball rolling, so to speak.
I'll be nice and be your alternate.
Oh, okay.
You probably have the most underserved areas of the county.
It's true. Broadband's a big deal.
So you'll be hearing from folks about it, but, okay, well, sounds like a plan. Jenica seems like the right point. They're looking for a point person is what I'm seeing in the letter.
Correct.
And then Jenica can just keep Commissioner Fournier involved, and if you see a good opportunity for a commissioner to accompany you or backstop you, then let us know, or let him know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jenica.
Okay, we just flew through this morning's agenda, record speed. Commissioner items is up. Anybody have anything they need to address this morning?
I haven't given a commissioner's item report in a while. I guess I'll just, I'll report on the National Association of Counties Conference, the legislative conference. I learned quite a bit on how to be the most effective for next year if we want to send commissioners. I saw how other counties prepared themselves when they were talking with the congressional delegation and just how they set it all up. There was a lot of pre-planning that went into it. I saw both Pierce, Kitsap, King County and Snohomish County. And they had basically packets that they would have prepared for their congressional delegation with all of their, basically what their requests were going to be, what their needs were. And it was just pretty, I thought pretty cool to see all of that. So it's something that I would like to maybe at the end of this year or sometime, in order for us to prepare ourselves for next year, have kind of like what we do with Deborah, have a meeting with our federal lobbyists and come down with what our requests are going to be for next year, what our appropriation requests are going to be, or earmarks, or, and that way there's that sort of preparation. Meetings with congressional staff went very well. Talked about the election security, the fact that only the funding that was set aside for elections only went to polling states. And so states like Washington State are out of that funding loop, and let them know that, of course, it affects us, especially as we had a scare this year with letters being sent to different counties, and we didn't know if there was fentanyl in them or not, and just the risk that that poses to our election workers, and of course the additional infrastructure that we have to invest in. So just letting them know that, you know, we also need that funding. Spoke about the meat processing plant, and then it talked about other projects that we had, but I think it would have been nice to have kind of a more concise list rather than me just trying to go through our items in a very quick manner. I met with Senator Cantwell and thanked her for the $3 million, you know, that we were able to grab through the grant. And that was something that, you know, she made available. So I thanked her for that funding. Let's see, other than that, the big topics were broadband. There was a lot of discussion about election security as well. So it's not just a concern for Washington State, it's a concern for everyone. And equity in government was another big discussion topic. So brought some materials that I'm going to be, cybersecurity was another one that I'm going to be sharing with everyone, or as I've seen people, I've been sharing it with them. And I think it's worthwhile in a sense that I went with WASAC, Washington State Association of Counties, and I met with and kind of went over the WASAC federal priorities that included broadband as well. It included the PILT money, it included the inmate access to Medicaid, it included veteran services, and so kind of just, and then the ARPA extension. And so they had a really good maps of where we're at and those priorities kind of listed out. So attended the meetings with them, and then I also attended meetings with the National Association of Hispanic Counties and county officials, and kind of went with them as they were discussing their priorities, and then also had the opportunity to meet on my own as Thurston County with our delegation as well. So a lot of congressional visits, and hopefully something fruitful comes out of that.
I definitely agree that it would be nice, like, if, like we talk about, you know, federal stuff comes up here and there, but we don't have it collected in one place. And then when I get in a situation where, I mean, we have access now at Steady to Glusenkamp, Perez, Cantwell, Murray. They're all sending reps, and it's like I don't have the short list of federal-related county issues in my mind the way I do our state stuff. And so I'm often like blanking out and just can't think of what it is we even need to address. And it seems like missed opportunities, you know, not to have that, you know, list of priorities ready, at least annually.
Yes.
You know, as part of our process for developing. It's fun, but sometimes I just don't always think was well on my feet as I wish I did. Okay, well, that's good. Thank you, Commissioner Mejia. Any other commissioner items? Commissioner Edwards?
Maybe an ask, was fentanyl piece of the discussion going on back there as well.
Yes, there was a lot of discussion about mental health, behavioral health, as well as just overdose. And it was just all the counties in the United States are struggling with it. It's not just us. Affordable housing was another big issue. I think in Washington State, right, we feel like sometimes like we're in a bubble, and that's just, it's happening all over in small counties, rural counties, and bigger counties. Affordable housing was the big topic of discussion. Attended also a meeting in terms of the USDA representative was there, and he had I need to look at my notes because just. There was conversation in regards to the Farm Bill, but then there was also a lot of conversation about the Climate Smart Act in terms of agriculture. And they are, there's apparently 141 million acres of farmland lost across the United States. So it's also something that they're talking about at a federal level. And that was just interesting to hear, again, that it's not just us going through these issues. It's also them. They've lost over 437,000 farms. And so they're trying to kind of put money back into that system.
Was it, I guess I'd do a follow-up on that. Are they just trying to do it with money? Are they doing it with other maybe incentives, family tax benefit or something to encourage participation, like a carrot rather than a stick?
Yeah, and so one of the projects that they mentioned, which I thought was interesting, I was going to talk to Rebecca more about it, was in terms of, basically is putting farms into kind of a carbon market and then have the farmers be able to sell it for additional funding, which I thought was very interesting. I still have questions in terms of like, how will they be able to access that carbon market? That was one of the projects that they listed, and they had this whole kind of system that they were going to put in place, and there were a lot of questions on how it would work. But it just from what the secretary told us, the details weren't outlined quite yet. So there's several carrots that I think they're trying to put back in.
Well, thanks for going back there. I'd rather take a beating than go back there.
In a similar vein, I was in the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, really on behalf of LOT. But it's a great conference because it's really policy level, not technical. And it was amazing to me how like 75% of everything they talked about related to all the other parts of my work, not just clean water. So we talked a lot about communication and how to elevate your communication, how to navigate the rapid pace of change, which of course we're seeing in many sectors, not just wastewater treatment, but how to, bringing stakeholders in, or bringing your critics in early and on the front end, bringing your staff in early at a decision-making level so that everyone kind of buys in and gets their voice heard early in projects. It was a good reminder. We talked a lot about just elevating wastewater treatment should not be seen as, a siloed sewer department that just does one thing and it's not connected to all the other pieces of water, the environment and infrastructure. It was argued like, about it was juxtaposed against transportation, where everywhere you look, there's federal and state dollars coming in to help us with road projects. But wastewater treatment is just as fundamental to our community infrastructure, but yet the only thing that a wastewater treatment can do is compete for some low-interest loans, but there aren't just federal dollars throwing in.
Yeah.
So we really need to elevate this to to our critical infrastructure so that everybody's kind of getting treated equally when it comes to funding. And part of that is we've heard about the One Water concept, and I always thought about One Water as a good way to internally make decisions and plan and be not siloed. But it also has this community, communication value in terms of educating the public and elevating wastewater into the broader system of clean water, and why it's important to fund these activities and support all of that. So it's got multiple layers of benefit to double down on this idea of One Water, and because it's just as important to manage stormwater as it is to deal with water quantity, and permit exempt wells and all that, as it is to treat your wastewater, and because that's what's going back into your surface water sources. And so all of that kind of communication was the theme of the conference, and it was something that really, a lot of good lessons for me, for a lot of stuff that we do, not just what lot does or what in the county. We're involved in that in Grand Mound as well. Yeah.
Was there any talk of corporate activity, chemical application forests and stuff like that, and how that spin-off effect is directly related to water? I mean, I'll use your position on lot, where we're probably doing better than most everybody. Now, I can't say everybody else, but we're head and shoulders above a lot of organizations that deal with this. And yet, I know ecology is on lot about nitrogen. Well, but nitrogen can be from so many other sources, and yet lot gets the brunt of it. And we don't seem to be willing to look at those other sources, especially if they're put in play by large corporate interests. So
that piece wasn't really.
I can't get anybody to talk about that when I go to those functions, to be honest with you. And it happens all around the United States.
There is talk, like what I thought you were going to ask me about was biosolids, and there is quite a bit of talk about.
I was going to ask you a follow-up on that as well.
Some of that happened in committee work that I wasn't part of, but I saw it on the agenda, and I know that in other areas, so what I know is that there are certain places in the country, back east mainly, where they have banned application of biosolids on even for like we do in Eastern Washington for agricultural application. Now that's not necessarily considered best practice, or that's just what certain, I think, political realities have created in certain places. And I'm trying to remember where they were talking about. One of them was it was a small state, but it was like the whole state, Maryland or something like that. It said, we're not allowing you to do this. So they're having to, by law, create that higher level biosolid product and then, sell it or do, or ship it out of state.
Yeah, well, that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the problem.
But the steps, there's not a lot of extra steps to take it to that higher class A, solid.
Anyway.
It does cost money, and I think money is the driver and yet.
But it also creates a commodity.
Yeah, sure, and they should be funding, just like you're talking about roads and stuff.
Yeah, we can
Nobody wants to talk about the sewer, your flush toilet's gone, you're driving on the road every day. Yeah. And we need to start paying attention to that. And from the broader perspective, it's even greater yet. I mean, if you look at satellite photos of where the Mississippi ends up, and use color contrasting with chemicals, nitrogen mainly, and all the ag activity that leads into that. I mean, raising corn is an annual deposit of chemicals. Raising trees, it's every 7 or 10 years. that they're doing something very similar. And where's that product go once the biomass is passed up and it's being used by that biomass, it goes into the groundwater, then it shows up in the rest of the water. And we don't seem to be too interested in following the problem to its source. And I've been talking about that for years. And in Victoria, British Columbia was a good example. Only until the last few years have they had a sewer treatment plant.
Right.
You know, prior to that, it was out in the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And so we're making headway, and we've made a lot of headway if you want to talk about environmental issues over the last 50 years or something. When you look at the Chesapeake Bay back there, it used to be almost unbelievably bad, you know, and Victoria's made a big, but we've still got the Fraser River Industrial Complex that, boy, bad stuff, the environment, and yet we get after a citizen for, I'm not saying that they can't have an effect, but the citizens have a pretty small piece compared to industrial pollution. But we can more easily regulate the citizen. Anyway, just follow.
Other commissioner items?
I didn't go anywhere cool like the rest of you guys. I just hold it down here with Gary. Somebody had to. I attended a canvassing board meeting. I actually really enjoyed that. That was something that it was good to learn what they do. I had a flood authority meeting and then met with some constituents on docket items along with Commissioner Mejia. So that was my week, or the end of my week.
You know, could I do a follow-up on the Commissioner's flood authority? At least I get information out of the Nisqually Valley about flood activities, and the Tacoma Power has done a really good job. You know, a lot of times I'm critical about, do they release too much water or whatever, but they've really been paying attention lately. So you guys ought to know that, I guess, because it does affect you if we have a major flood like we've had numerous times in the past. It has to do with, are we saving water at the right time, or are we releasing at the wrong time?
You know, Commissioner Edwards got your eyes on it.
I think the whole thing is it's dependent on the person though, and right now there is a really good person who's been working with us and working with emergency services, which is great. But if that person is to leave, we don't know who we're gonna get next.
You got it.
And so I think just having a standard of,
We still need to, we're moving forward on this, yeah, okay.
having a standard, I think is needed because it, again, it shouldn't be dependent on a person. It should be just kind of a policy that they have on communicating with us.
Commissioner Mejia had the idea, I think that's what you were hitting me about, when we have our county manager to have a public open house. And this actually came up when I was interviewed by the Olympian as well, and it seemed to be well received from that quarter. So hopefully the board would support us doing something like that, kind of a, you know, meet and greet with the public, where the public's as widely invited to kind of hear where, you know, since it's coming from out of town, and we've had these news articles to just kind of give folks a chance to ask them questions and get a sense of, so if we can kind of flag that for you and Robin to kind of decide on or think about a good date for
I
something
think
like that.
folks have already been scrubbing calendars for dates because it's not necessarily easy, but I don't know if we settled on it.
So I know Thomasina and all of our aides have been,
Should be an evening thing, right?
yeah,
It is.
are working on making sure all of our schedules are available. And we were thinking around, oh, Taylor?
Looks like right now we have it on the afternoon or the evening of the 5th
Of March?
of April.
Oh, of April, I'm sorry.
April, yeah.
April, right.
Which would be a Friday.
That could be good. First week, wrapping up the first week, and does that seem a good idea for everybody?
Well, good
No,
call.
Okay, Commissioner Fournier, did you have something, right? Nope? Okay. We good for this morning?
Oh, I've got a couple of
Go ahead,
issues,
Gary.
maybe. Our meeting material, making sure that we get it timely, because we're going into this new scheduling, I guess, and making sure that it's got, the materials we get and page numbers and all that. I always harp about that. I'd feel I was derelict in my duty if I didn't bring it up once in a while. Making sure that the prosecutor's office has signed off on all of our resolution and ordinances before we sign them. Because sometimes that's not the case anymore. I don't know where it slips, but, and I see the new clerk of the board is trying to get some ordinance and our resolution numbers attached before, right when we get done in our minutes. So when we sign off on the minutes the next day or whenever we do, the resolution number is there, and it makes it a lot easier for us to find it and for the public to find it, what we voted on. So just a
I
couple
had
of
a
housekeeping things.
Yeah, so on the housekeeping topic, I had a conversation with Robin, and it might have been Amy right before you came back, but we were just trying to talk about the issue of getting the minutes posted up in a time, because that was, of all the different sort of criticisms that we've faced, some of them didn't really seem to, either didn't have an answer or weren't actually accurate, but that one seemed to have some validity, that we were kind of not getting our minutes posted up in a public manner. There's no reason not to have minutes available online. Like, people shouldn't have to
ask
to track down the minutes. Once they're signed off, they should just go up on a place on the website and be really easily accessible. Is that something you've talked about with Robin or Rob or?
Not minutes specifically, but the signature packet, as we call it, as a whole.
Yeah, well, it's just mainly like, meeting minutes should just be like, they should be easy to find, posted on some kind of schedule, whatever it is, it may not be 24 hours, it might be a week. I don't really care, but whatever that schedule is should be sort of predictable and very easy to find in one place. That makes sense on the housekeeping side.
Maybe another housekeeping issue possibly.
Yep.
We have a lot of folks that serve on our boards and commissions and put a lot of time in, and then they go on for whatever reason. They move, they take on new activities in life, whatever it is. And we don't seem to do very good about recognition. And I wonder if that isn't something, and it kind of comes back to Commissioner Fournier's fun thing. Let's do some, and I'm not saying we have to have a party or anything like that, but just even little things like recognizing community volunteers in our community that put a lot of time into different things. And so I think if we would pass that request to groups that are overseen by staff, so they have a meeting, they kind of keep track of it. Okay, so-and-so's been on this committee for 5 years, going on to something else. What's it take to submit a certificate of recognition or a thank you letter, or, signed by the chair of the board or something? I don't know, just something, because if we're going to continue to try and get public support, we need to support the public that is supporting us and try and do as many things that are attaboys rather than the other thing. The other thing always gets more attention. And
We can add that to the planning session.
yeah,
discussion
maybe we
about
could
boards
just
and
talk
commissions
about
and-
how we could move that forward, in one fashion or another. I don't have an answer, or I'm not particularly making a suggestion. Just, we can always do a little better, that's all.
I am in agreement with you on that. I think it is very valuable to just appreciate the time, especially that our community has volunteered on these advisory boards. I know that they take it very seriously. I've seen it in SWAB, for example, you know, they just, and all the different ones, they take it very seriously, and, I know sometimes we don't even know when someone leaves, right? And we're just like, oh, like,
There's a vacancy.
there's a vacancy. So I think if there is something where we say, like, if there is someone who leaves and they've served for a certain period of time, the board would like to be notified, that way there can be like a recognition sent.
I would say anyone that serves like a full term, whatever that is, which should, you know, a certificate with one of those enamel pins, say Thurston County would be a nice
Something.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
Just to
I
say.
don't know what the answer is, but
For
we should be
volunteering.
doing something. That's all I'm saying. How we can fit that into our schedules and without overburdening our staff.
The key for me is just figuring out how to get the information to the right person, like, you know, because like we said, just every board has a different structure and a different staffer that's involved, like, how to communicate so that we know, like, on a timely, like, organized fashion when somebody steps off. You know, it could be like a duty of the chair or duty of the staff support, or, you know, somebody's gotta, because you don't want to then forget people, right? If you want
Right. Well,
to
you
start
try-
doing
yeah.
it, you want to start doing it
And we'd like to
comprehensively.
include everybody.
Include everybody, right.
You know,
Not just leave somebody out, because that
I don't know, I
committee
think we
doesn't.
finally did give something to maybe Ann Shipley out at the Fair Board or something.
It
like
took
that.
like, you know,
I mean, she was an
50-year
institution.
commitment.
Yeah, 50-year service to the community or something, you know? And so I just think we need to take just a moment to recognize, just like Commissioner Mejia said, these folks do take it really seriously. They put a lot of time in. And we should give them something, recognition, something, like you say, the pin. I mean, what the heck, you know?
Since we're on that topic, what's the status of our, the board stipend for Racial Equity Council, that whole issue? I thought we needed to pass a policy in order to do it, and I haven't seen that policy.
Doing that?
DV is working on a policy right now.
Did agree to do that. I think you were there.
Part of the
last
budget
year.
process.
In the tail end of the budget process. We did a pilot for the Racial Equity Council, I think was the.
That was gonna be the
And-
pilot.
And I requested for the RHC advisory groups to be included on those because the city of Olympus doing it, but they've requested for us to do it.
And then it was kind of like, well, we need a policy, and, I mean, now it's, you know, it seems like that should be forthcoming or on our radar here pretty shortly.
I'll have to follow up.
I know DV's been working on it, but, you know, the EEOP kind of took precedence over just because of the timing element that, we had discussed with the auditor's office, so I know she had to switch gears and do the EEOP, so, but I think the policy should be forthcoming. Chair, I have
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
okay,
ahead.
good. Then I have another one too.
I just wanted to give an update. I heard from Strategies 360 that the Tom Waters Habitat Acquisition and Restoration Project was included in the 2024 supplemental budget, and they got $2 million for that.
How much did they get?
$2 million.
Good.
I went through the list and I didn't.
So it's worth
find-
asking sometimes.
Yeah, it's worth asking.
Sam sent out an email last night, I saw that.
Yeah, and so just, they sent a thank you to the board for sending in a letter of support for that project, and, they're,
5 acres is what they.
yeah. So that's good news for Tom Water. I know that they've been really struggling with the HCP piece of things. I went through the list of any other projects for us, and I didn't see anything else, so I guess, at least one of our letters worked.
They produced something.
Produced something.
Commissioner Edwards, yeah.
The new schedule, I don't know, we're not hardly into the new schedule, but we are. And at some point, and I don't know when we're having a upcoming discussion, but we might need to have a review at some point to see, is it working? And how's it fitting? And the reason I'm asking, if we don't have a time on our particular meeting. We might show 3 or 4 topics that we're gonna be covering at this certain point in time. Oftentimes, staff, I think, ends up being less than productive if they're trying to accommodate us by, whether that's here waiting in the room to get up or rushing down here. If they're following it, it's working. I'm just wondering, is it working? 'Cause
Having the block of time
Yeah, the
rather
block
than
of time,
separate
that's right,
briefings.
instead of, because oftentimes we would have something on there by time schedule, we're gonna do a half hour here. And maybe we got done 15 minutes early, and we could have moved on to the other one, but that was the way we were doing it then. Now we're trying to do something else. I know we're always trying to do better. Is it working? I guess that's, and is it working and taking into consideration, might be working for us, but is it working for staff?
Right, and so you'll notice that your calendars really have only been populated with this for the first half of the year, with the intent to kind of look at it, review it, and refine it as going forward. So there are always pros and cons for any approach.
Sure.
Preliminarily, I like it. I mean, I haven't thought about that issue.
I'm not, this is not criticism. This is
But
just.
preliminarily, I really like the, there's a predictability we never had before. Like
Yeah.
somebody asked me, oh, can you meet me on Thursday? It's like, oh, no. I mean, I'd have to, but now it's like, I kind of know what my Thursday looks like, or my,
Right.
I mean, it's just like, it just puts a little method to the madness that we kind of had before.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a criticism. I just,
And from a productivity standpoint, I mean, there are very few staff or departments that are actually have a briefing at each and every one of the work sessions.
Sure.
Right? So they're only probably focused on one morning, say, where they're having to pay attention as to when they might need to jump on.
even
And
the
it's a
Zoom.
cultural-
Zoom makes it so much
Makes it
easier. I mean,
possible.
before the pandemic, like, public work staff would have to be sitting there
Yeah.
all morning.
So,
Like, there's
no,
no
it's,
option.
I think it's working. Is it working to the best, or can we tweak it just a little bit for those that maybe are off-campus people, or, so they could come to a meeting if they wanted to, but Zoom sure fills that void.
Right.
It does for us as individuals.
Okay. Anything else, folks? Commissioner Klaus, anything you wanted to throw out?
No, I don't really have any major updates. I'll probably just run through my calendar from last week at tonight's meeting, but I don't have anything to share here this morning.
Perfect. All right.
Commissioners, just a quick follow-on to Commissioner Edwards' question earlier about the parking fees. I did get a response from Nicole that is actually hitting Fund 5210, which is Central Services Facilities.
Okay, well, it's 10:50. We've come to the end of the agenda. We'll be back in session at 2 p.m. for our regular board meeting, and we're adjourned.